Hello and welcome to this overview of the at-risk capacity of the AutoScholar Advisor system. In this session, we'll cover the identification of at-risk students, as well as at-risk courses and even at-risk academic programs and faculties. We'll also look into biographical correlations that may predict future at-risk performance. Let's take a look at the students that are at risk in a course. Note these strings of garbled text which are actually hashes of student names and student numbers. We are looking at real data of real students, hence the data has been anonymized for the purpose of this video. When the student at-risk interface for a course loads, you'll find the assessment statistics for each assessment in the course shown on the left of the interface. To the right, we find the advising of identified at-risk students, and additional student information on the far right. In the center, we are presented with a list of at-risk students in the course. This has been determined by evaluating a set of criteria which help identify specific issues. Each issue detected raises an alert, and an unusually high number of alerts classifies a student as being at risk. Alerts are of two types, being a low mark on an assessment, or a low mark relative to the performance of the other students. If we take a closer look at one of these students, we see that the alert index shows us that there are two alerts for this student based on the at-risk settings. Under issues we see that the z-value for TM1, which is test mark 1, is less than -1.5. The z-value is the number of standard deviations away from the mean, so the student's mark here is significantly lower than the mean, even though the absolute value of the mark being 66%, is not typically thought of as low. That's because the mean mark for test 1 is close to 89% with a standard deviation of around 12. Since this student has only achieved 66% in this test, which is almost 2 standard deviations below the mean, we know we have to count this as a very low mark. The second alert is for test mark 2, where the student achieved a mark of only 44%. Since we also want to raise an alert when a mark is below 50%, whether or not it's unusually low, we count this as an alert. Such choices are debatable, but instead of trying to debate them, the user is free to change these criteria. So if you would like to adjust the at-risk settings to more stringent or softer criteria, you can do so under the at-risk settings shown here. We can completely switch off an alert type by setting unrealistic high or low values, or we can make an alert more prominent by choosing tighter ranges for the values. That is how we are able to control the at-risk report that we see, and how we are meant to read and understand the issues highlighted in that report. As you can see in the right panel, there are areas where you can make contact with a student, or view more detail about that student. Once you're satisfied with the criteria for identifying student who may need your help, what do we do with this information? We can select each student who's been identified as at risk, and the form on the right will automatically populate with the student's contact information. This includes the email address as well as a message body pre-filled with student information. To simplify the advising process, the message which includes the student's results are pre-filled and can be edited to suit the sender. This makes it much easier for a lecturer to reach out to assist the students most in need. Below the contact form you also find more information about the student which can aid in understanding whether there may be non-academic issues at play. This includes personal details, biographical and demographic data, as well as information about their history. We can also look at whole cohorts of students registered in a particular academic program to identify which students are taking more time to complete courses, which of them are registering for a low number of core courses, as well as which are seriously underperforming. If we look at the list of underperforming students, the system has generated alerts for these students. This student has been registered for 11 semesters, which is just an unusually long time to be allowed to stay on the same 4-year program. The reason is that this student is taking an unusually low number of core course credits. This is typical behavior of a student trying to stay within the progression rules. They might take up a course that is unrelated to their degree in order to make up the minimum required credits in a semester, even if there is no relevance or even interest in the coursework. This is unwanted academic behavior which ultimately subverts the progression system, and the system identifies this kind of behavior and flags these students. Another type of alert is raised when a student is passing on average an unusually low number of credits per semester. Although more honest than the previous case, this is an indication of a student who progresses slowly and may need additional support to avoid exclusion. This student is only passing on average 36 credits in one semester, which is quite low in comparison with other students. Again, By clicking on any student card you can get more information about that student to try to understand their position better. On the left you can see more details about a specific student as well as view their progression data over time. The data available helps to paint a complete picture of the student and includes data like the number of semesters, credits attempted, mean marks and actual results achieved. So much for identifying at-risk students. To really improve overall performance, we also have to consider that there may be whole courses that are at risk. Let's look at all the courses taken by students registered in an academic program in a specified year. The system has generated a list of courses which appear to limit overall progression, and has flagged these as gatekeeper courses in this program. First, it identifies which courses appear to require significantly more attempts by students before they're actually passed. This also shows up as students passing the course on average later than they are expected to. For example, it takes this student 1.85 times to pass this course. Additionally, the system has identified that this course is taken by most students in this program. It therefore correctly identifies this as a core course. Since there is low performance and it's a core course, this is a gatekeeper which is limiting overall progression toward graduation. Now let's look at courses that have been impacted by the presence of the gatekeeper courses. Gatekeeper impacted courses are those which can only be attempted later than intended because the earlier gatekeeper had a low pass rate. In other words, the gatekeeper course may be a prerequisite which limits the time at which the more senior courses can be undertaken. The system has worked out where each course is supposed to lie in this academic program. It determines whether the course should be in the third or fourth year, and whether the students are on average actually taking this course later. In the case shown, the system has worked out that this is supposed to be a fourth-year course but most students are only taking it in the fifth year, which is why it highlights it as a possible gatekeeper-impacted course. Further to the health of the academic programs, we are also able to view course information on the dashboard which provides an insight into course and student counts. This interface tells us that there are almost 4,000 courses in this institution and that there are on average 87 students in each course, with about 1,000 courses which have less than 5 students. We can look into the specifics of each course using the live tables below. We have so far looked at the student and course at risk functionality. Now let's look at how this translates to identifying programs and faculties that are at risk. This focuses on pass rates and time to grad issues. However, let's first look at the occupancy. Overall, we have on average 58 students per program and only 15% of students who are passing in minimum time. Also, 54% of students have not graduated, which is alarming considering that we are looking at a cohort of students who entered in 2015. This program has a low number of minimum time graduating students at 14% and the overall grad rate is only 40%. With low numbers of students graduating in minimum time, these have strong subsidy implications. This program has a high rate of non-graduation with 88% having not graduated from this program as yet. However, we note there's a fairly low number of students, so this observation affects smaller numbers of students. We are discussing these various points to simulate the case of reading such a report and looking for particular issues to direct attention. This may include directing supplemental support and teaching resources to improve performance in these challenge spots. In addition to simply counting the number of students taking particular amounts of time to graduate, it is useful to identify the factors that lead to successful graduation. We therefore perform a deeper analysis by looking at the student biographical correlations within these programs in terms of time to graduate. For example, with reference to mean metric points, we can use this graph to view its correlation with the minimum time graduation rate as opposed to no grad rate. This gives us an understanding of the average biographical characteristics of the students and its impact on the performance of the program in terms of the minimum time to graduate and overall graduation rates. We can perform the same type of analysis using any of these variables such as quintile, gender, race and marital status. When a factor is identified as correlating with underperformance, we may understand that differing levels of support are necessary, and hence direct the support to where it is needed most. Furthermore, we can look into correlations about the students who have graduated or not graduated based on a range of biographical data. If we look at gender in terms of male students, there's almost an equal number of students who graduated and did not graduate, which is close to 50%, whereas for female students we have a grad rate of 63%. If you switch that to race, you can also see race is not a strong differentiating factor. In terms of quintile, however, you can see that the higher the quintile number, the higher the likelihood of graduating. You can also see at the lower quintiles there's a roughly similar number of graduated and non-graduated students, and then at the higher quintiles there's a larger proportion of students who do graduate. The same analysis can be performed for marital status, language, and much more. These analytics give you a quick overview of the performance across the whole institution and the numbers of people involved there, and helps drive attention to places where there might be opportunities for increasing the performance and hence improving the subsidy income to the institution. At-risk identification is a critical activity that helps us take action before failure becomes imminent. It helps lecturers reach out to students or management to direct resources to where they're most needed.